We are going to learn how to fetch API data using PHP. We shall fetch data from JSON type code, and we shall see two ways in which we can fetch the data. One of the ways is using file get contents, and another is using the CURL or curl library. We shall also be able to present the data like this, and we can also present the data on a web page as a PHP array. Let's dive in. I have set up MAMP on my computer. You can see that here it's running. It shows you that the servers are running, because if they are not running, this would show start instead of stop. To confirm that, we can go to localhost Codro 8, and we can see the things that I already have in MAMP. We can also go to the MAMP folder where the projects are saved. On Mac, we go to Applications, MAMP, htdocs. So I'll create a directory here that I'll call tutorials. Inside this directory, I'll put APIs. So I'll use VS Code to navigate to Applications, MAMP, and then I will go to htdocs and tutorials, then APIs, and click open. Example 1.php, and I'll open my PHP here. So if we are going to fetch data from an API, the first thing we have to get is the URL. We have to set a URL from which you are going to fetch the data. So I'll create a variable here, URL. I'll go to my browser and go to JSON type code. Then JSON type code, like you can see, it's a free fake API for testing and prototyping, powered by JSON server and LoadDB, tested with XV. So if we scroll down here, we can see they are giving us examples, but this example is for JavaScript. But we can get a URL from it. This URL is for to-dos, but we can find other resources here. However, we shall use the to-dos, so I'll click this over here, and then I'll get the URL from the address bar of the browser. Then I'll make sure that this URL is put in strings. So the next thing that we have to do is to fetch the data from the URL, and we are going to put a variable here called data, to which we shall assign file get contents, which is an inbuilt PHP function for making communications and managing files. So we shall get that. So this one connects to this URL and it fetches data out of it. Now the returned data, let's see how the returned data will look like. Here our PHP is ready. We can actually decide to go and test it out. So I will just head over to the browser and refresh. Then you can see our tutorials is here. I'll click it and I'll click APIs, then example 1. And if it doesn't have errors, it will display. This is how the data is presented. But we can present this data a little bit better so that it's more understandable. We shall use pre-tags like this, and shall enclose this one in its own PHP tag, and we shall do that. Yeah, so you can see that this content, they show you that it's type of string, and this is how it's displaying. So how can we, for example, pick out the first item? How can we pick, how can we pick out the second or something? Yeah, so what you have to do is a simple thing. All you have to do before you display is that you have to turn the data in this into a PHP value. Currently, it's a string or a JSON string, and the JSON strings are not PHP values. They're just like strings. So I'll create a variable here and call it to do's, and then run a function called JSON decode, and then pass in the data. And then I can put the to-dos here. I'll go to the browser here, and you can see that previously it was string. If I refresh, now it's an array, and it even shows us that it has 200 items. You can see that it's an array of objects. So there's an object at index 0, an object at index 1, so on and so forth. We shall comment this one out, and we want to pick out the first and the second item. So what we shall do, we do PHP here, and then we can set to do's 0 will give us the first item, and it will give us its title. Then we can say here, let me put an heading here, to do's, like this, and then we can echo this, and also I think I can put them in there, each in its own paragraph. So I can do this and that and put it in a paragraph, and then I open another paragraph, PHP echo to do's brackets 1 brackets title. So this is a multi-dimensional array, and then I can do that. Let's see if this works. We shall refresh, and it says unquote error object. So we have to access this differently. How? We can just do this and this. Now let's preview in the browser. The first item is that title, and the second item is this title. So this is how you would use PHP file get contents to fetch data from APIs. Let's go to example 2. So I have created my file example2.php, and we are going to follow the following steps. We are going to first of all use the curl library. Then we shall set the API endpoint URL, initialize the session, set the curl options, and then execute the curl request, close the session, and then the sixth option is to convert the returned string to a PHP value. So how are we going to do this? Step number 1, create a variable, and we set a URL to it. We shall pick the URL from our first example, and we paste it there, because we are going to get the same data. We need to initiate the curl or call session. We shall create here a variable which will store the session, and I'm calling it call handle equals to call init. Now here we pass the URL. We shall go to the next option of setting the options. We don't need to assign them to any variable, so we just say call set options. We shall pass the handle here as the first argument. The second argument will be the option to return transfer, and then the third option is true. If you want to learn more about curl, you can go to the official documentation. So we shall go to the fourth option of executing the curl session. When the session is executed, we get data. So we shall say curl execute, and we shall pass the handle. And it's a good habit that whenever you execute the session, you release the memory by closing the curl session. So we just say curl close, and then what are we closing? We are closing the session that we had initialized earlier. Now the sixth step is to undo our data. First of all, let's just dump to see if everything we are doing is okay. So we shall enter example 2. The data is returned. So we see that on the browser, these things are like an essay. It's not like data. And from API, we expect to get JSON data, which is well arranged and organized. When JSON returns data, it returns it in form of a string, which we need to turn into a PHP value and be able to manipulate it. So let us see how to do that. We shall create a variable called todos and assign it JSON decode, which we looked at in the first example. We are going to add a second argument, which is true. Why are we adding the second argument? It's because if you remember in the first example, when we were accessing the to-dos, the title, we used the object notation as opposed to the array notation. It's because here we did not pass the second argument of true or false. So if we turn this to true, now everything that we get will be a variable. Let's see that. So we want to access the first to do, and the way we do it is to do's 0. If we dump this, what is going to happen? Let's see on the browser. I'll refresh. You can see that on the browser we have an array of 4 items. The first item is the user ID, the second item is the ID, the third is the title, and then the status, which is completed. We can now go back to our code and present this in a better way. How are we going to do that? We can echo the title by accessing to do's as an array, 0 as, and then the title. Then we can also echo out the status to do's 0. You know the status is completed. For this one, we can use a condition to check whether it's true or false. So we shall say this, and then we say completed, otherwise incomplete or pending or something. Can we format this better? I don't know. Yeah, we can. Instead of doing all of that, I can just put something here like that, and we can concat it as a string, just like that. Let's see what we shall get out of this. Going to go to the browser, refresh. Oh, so we have a challenge. I did not remove the var_dump, so I need to remove the var_dump to comment it, and then we can see the details, the exact details we want. So we've got the status incomplete, but we did not get the title. So why echo to do's? I'm trying to find the error. Okay, I think I get the reason why we are doing that. We are concatenating a condition, which is making things hard. What we can do in this case is not to concatenate, but to do something like this and echo here. I believe this will bring us what we want. Let me go to the browser, refresh. Title is here and the status is here. So that's it. If we want item 2, you know what to do. We can echo a break line here to make sure that these things appear on different lines, and then we can go to the browser. You see, that's it. So we have 2 items both showing that. Remember, at the beginning I said we shall be able to present our data in this format, whereby the complete item is cancelled out and the incomplete ones are like that. So let us do that. Okay, So we are going to open here and create a third example and say example 3 and save. Then with this example, we can either copy the code in example 1 or example 2, but I love CURL more, so I'll copy example 2 and take it to example 3 so that I don't start from scratch. However, this time around we're gonna put our API data in an HTML page. So I'll put a boilerplate for HTML and start. Then I'll say highlight incomplete items. That's the title I'll put. Then in the body here, I'll put the PHP. So I have to open the PHP tag and close them. Yes, so here it's opened. And I think I can do better by indenting PHP in the body. So like that. Since we know these steps, I will remove them from here and just clean the code a bit. And then what will I do? Then I'm going to use CSS tag here by saying that style type equals text CSS and close style. Then I want something which is completed text decoration. So CSS is the one which is going to strike our item, and we shall say line through. So I assume you know how to use CSS. And then we are going to go down here and let's remove this var dump. We are going to create a loop to loop our to-dos. So we are not going to access them like 0, 1, no, because I mean we don't know how many items we have. So if we just do that, it will take us a lot of time. So we are going to use a for each, and we set to do's as to do. What this is doing is that it's going to cycle through the to do's as it's giving us one to do. But remember, every to do has its own properties like user ID, ID title, and completed. So what we are going to do is we are going to access those properties on each of the to do. So how we shall do that, I can start with echo, make it simple. Let me close the PHP here and open a PHP here. I find that more organized. Then I'll open an HTML paragraph and say echo to do. Remember, this time we are accessing an individual to do, so we don't have to put the indexes, but we have to put the property. So we shall set to do title, put, oh, I've forgotten the echo here, and outside it put a dash, and then we are going to put this. We don't need the status here, so we just need the title, and we shall do P, and then we can go and test. So we are going to remove this code. We don't need it. It was copied together with the other code in example 2. Now we have to go to the browser and test our third example. Here I'll change 2 to 3 and enter and find the constant title. So I'll have to go back and see, yes, I had to put this in quotes. Yeah, sorry about that. And then you see we have all the to-dos. Now all we are left with is to strike those that are complete, and those that are not complete, we leave them. So how are we going to do that? We just need to have a conditional statement which checks whether this is completed or not. So if completed, open the if statement and then go here to this paragraph, add a class. Remember the class we put in CSS, this class completed is the one we are utilizing here to apply the CSS styles to this item so that we can show that it's completed. Then over here we can close the if statement, then we can put the else, which is going to undo the incomplete items. You can copy this and paste it over here. Excuse me, I have to correct this one. So, and after pasting it in this one, I remove this style. We can now check and see if we've got the results we want. So I'll refresh, and yeah. So that's how you can retrieve API data in PHP. Of course, these are simple examples. We've not looked at how to authenticate your calls and authorize them. We've not looked at many things. I hope this will help you get started or understand how to start using PHP to fetch data from APIs. If you found value in this tutorial, subscribe to this channel and join the community so that we can keep the fire burning. We can learn and connect. Thank you for watching.